Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. Today we're going to be finishing up the station and the sort of hillside weenie for our Pléaráca park, which is inspired by Ireland, and we're just doing a brief two-part series in celebration of St. Patrick's Day. So if you missed the last video, I encourage you to go through my videos and give that a view. Also gives you some information on the buildings in general. And basically, the station is inspired by Blarney House in Ireland, and beyond that, just sort of a lot of the larger, larger homes slash castles that you'll find throughout Ireland and really throughout the UK. And the castle on the hillside that you'll see that we start working on in a few minutes here is inspired by Blarney Castle in Ireland. Now, You'll see that I build it in a manner where it looks new rather than like something that has been there for centuries and has been worn down and just depleted over time. And really, that was intentional. I could have done a lot of different things to make it look like it was sort of a ruined castle, but for time's sake, this was just a short project we were working on. I decided to make it look like it was new. So we'll get into that section of the build in a minute here, but first just needed to finish up some of the work on the station. And in the last episode, we left off talking about landscaping, and there's a good portion of this episode that's going to show a lot of the placement of the water jets that are used to kind of create the river rapids in the front of the building. Now, realistically, it probably shouldn't have quite the force behind it that it does. Like if you watch the live footage of the rapids in front of this building and the size of sort of the stream or river, I mean, it probably wouldn't flow that way in real life. But it was my first time using the water effects, and I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. So not really any complaints there. I mean, given the assets that we have in the game, I don't really know if there's a way to sort of have like a trickling stream versus, a raging river, which is kind of what it looks like. But if there is, I would love to, see what you've done to kind of mimic the look of a stream. You'll see in one part of the video, and I'll point it out when we get to it, but I was able to create a section of it where it's just full of water, and then used some of the water effects turned upside down to create the illusion that the water had movement to it. And I was happy with that for two reasons. One, because it helped spread out the gap in terms of, or I should say, give me a gap in terms of an area where I didn't have to fill it with the water effects. And in addition to that, I just think it looks really good. So, but with the station right now, we're just, one of the really pronounced features of these types of buildings is the chimneys. And so I really wanted to make sure that these things nailed the look that you see in a lot of the photographs. And I just used some of the rough brick chimney, I believe, or the plaster chimney. I can't remember which one, but one of those two, and then hid it within the castle piece that we've been using on the exterior of the building, like you're seeing right here that I'm using. We just hid that inside of that piece. So I really like how the chimneys turned out, and I basically, once I had one of them done, it was easy to copy them around. And in fact, later on in the video, I actually make one of them a little bit smaller just to give it some variety. But generally speaking, once you have something like that done, you can pretty quickly add to the building and make it look, even more realistic than it already did. So now we're just getting into the part, like I said, there's going to be some landscaping in this video. In the last video, I think I commented that I did most of this off camera, which is true. I did a lot of it in the surrounding areas off camera. I kind of forgot how much I actually did on camera until I was making this video. Really, it's just going to be left to sort of the areas around the queue and this main stream area is what I captured on camera. And pretty simple, nothing groundbreaking, nothing earth-shattering. It's basically what you've seen a lot of people already do, and just layer in details with rocks and plants and put in plenty of water jets. One thing that I did try to do though is, if you look at a stream and how it flows, you know, a lot of times the water is really hitting things on the side of its stream, you know, hitting rocks, hitting the shoreline, things like that, and kind of bouncing back inwards. So I did make sure to have some of the jets that were just sort of running right down the middle, and then right here you can see I tried to position them in a way that it looked like the water was breaking around that rock. And I mimicked that a few times throughout the stream, and I really think it helped give it a lifelike appearance. Just having that rock there where, you know, all I did was point the jets around it, and it gave the appearance that, you know, the water was breaking right there and sort of flowing around the rock. And then once I got sort of these big rocks placed, then it was just a matter of going back in and kind of filling in with smaller rocks. You know, I wasn't as concerned about, you know, rotating and sinking in exactly all the smaller rocks. As long as they weren't poking out above the water, that was fine. It was enough to, you know, just have that detail so that you're not seeing either the grass or, you know, the painted appearance of, you know, some of the other textures that are available to you. So pretty happy with how that turned out. I just tried to use a lot of variety I didn't use a ton of variety in the color. You know, I know a lot of people will use like as many colors as possible, which, you know, I think depending on the look you're going for, that definitely is the right way to go. But given the fact that a lot of the photos I looked at of Ireland and just the landscape in general, there's a pretty consistent color in most of those photos. There wasn't a ton of variety, and so I'm actually pretty pleased with the consistent look that I was able to get throughout this queue area, and then in additional, you know, areas around the ride and sort of the little town that I end up creating as well. So yeah, just placing more of the water jets. You can see here again, making sure that I get one in the middle, and then, or two in the middle at least, and then going to the edges and sort of angling them inwards. And then by varying, you know, at the different spots in the stream or the river, and then you can also tweak the angle up or down, and you really get a ton of different variety in the sort of texture. And then here you can see I turned, I think it's the splash effect. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. But if you turn that upside down, and I don't remember who sort of posted that as a trick, but otherwise I'd try to give them credit. But anyway, I saw that, and it's perfect, because if you just turn that splash effect upside down, the spout aspect of it just shoots into the ground. But then if you position it correctly, you can end up with the sort of surface level effects spreading out across the existing water that you already have there, and it gives the appearance of some ripples and some movement. And, you know, that's one area where, given the speed that this stream is flowing at, and then how it flows into the body of water below, I tried to create as much sort of turbulence as I could in the water, but it definitely, you know, I would love it if there was a better way to create some additional water effects, or you know, some ripples or things like that. But anyway, with what we have in the game currently, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. So now we're just getting into the area where we're going to be building the castle. And for this, I pretty much just used like the rough brick wall set and colored it to kind of look like some of the limestone that you'll see throughout, you know, the UK and in Ireland. A lot of that really white looking stone. And again, similar to the station, just trying to go for a look that, if realistically, you know, all of the stone was quarried from one area, it would have a pretty consistent look. You know, it's the older the buildings are, the more likely it is that you're going to see sort of consistent look throughout. And it's purely based on availability of materials and things like that. And so I was okay with there not being a ton of variety on this part of the build, and in addition to that, it was really just intended to sort of be something that you have a nice vantage point of from the main area of the park, and the ride itself, just something off in the distance that paid homage to Ireland and the castles there, but wasn't something that necessarily would be super detailed. If I had more time, or if it wasn't just a specific build for St. Patrick's Day, I probably would have spent a lot more time detailing it, or like I said, making it look like it was sort of run down and was made up of ruins instead of basically a brand new castle. So yeah, one thing I did do though was utilizing some of the castle pieces. I was able to create some of the detail that you see from a defensive position in the castles. And right here I just used the archways and rotated them around all the way, and really you don't end up seeing those pieces very much in the final product, but they did provide me a really good sort of marker for pillars that end up going there. And I used just some chimneys, some of the rough brick chimneys, to give the appearance of pillars. And here you can see using the castle piece to again, I don't know what the technical term is, but here I'm just making some of the details that you see in like a defensive position, at the tops of castles. I think I mentioned this in the last build, but someone on Reddit had commented that there was way too many windows in the castle, and after going back and looking at some of the photos, like even when Blarney Castle was brand new, there would not have been this many windows. And so I don't have it on camera, but the final product that you'll see, I definitely took out probably like 80% of the windows that are there, and I have to agree, I do think it looks a lot better that way. So yeah, then here I'm just sort of trying to create the appearance of like a little courtyard area where maybe you would, if you were sort of the person in charge of like this fiefdom or whatever, that you would have, this is where you would like greet people and all that sort of thing. So I create that, and then in a second here I build like just a little small building that I kind of view as almost like a little storage house or something like that. Yeah, and here you can see I'm copying around the windows, which again I end up deleting like 80% of them, and I ended up trying to make them look somewhat random, because even looking at the modern day photos of Blarney Castle, you can see where original windows would have been, and there's not a ton of like rhyme or reason to where they go. I mean, there may be from the standpoint of like, it makes sense from like a defensive position or as like a military structure, that might be the case, but from what I could tell, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So here, like I said, here's that little house that I wanted to add, just like I said, as sort of a storehouse or something like that you would find in the courtyard. And then this is actually my favorite part of the castle, and I love how it turned out. So I decided to make stairway leading down to the sort of bottom area. And the bottom area I kind of envisioned as, if they were going to have this castle high up on the hill, you would want to have access to the water and have that be defended. And so that's kind of the inspiration between, the two sort of guard towers in addition to the castle. So I just broke out a piece of that castle top right there and used that as the walls for the bottom area. And I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. I had some trouble here getting those top sections to really line up all that well and in a way that was easy to copy around pretty quickly. So you'll see I messed around with that for a little bit here, and I think I ended up just finally lining it up with one of them and, sort of going that route, because every time I tweaked it and tried to position it in a way where I was, sort of overlapping when I would copy the entire building and move it over, it just still didn't line up. So I ended up just keeping the original one piece and copying it into two, and then that was my building that I copied around, with the exception of like here you can see I'm just taking that one wall section and using it. And I did find photos where you have castle walls on a hillside and they do kind of jut up like that, and there's what you would see on the other side of the wall is there would be stairs up to those higher areas. And so I do think that looks pretty good. It looks pretty realistic from some of the photos I've seen. And this area I end up tweaking quite a bit. This was totally just an experiment the entire time I was working on it, and ended up with a pretty good finished product, I think. And like I said, the stairs were really my favorite part of this build. Especially, you'll see I end up using the walls to sort of box it in and make it look as though, you know, stones have been stacked on top of each other and act as sort of a retaining wall. And yeah, the nice thing about this too is I kind of got to work outside of my normal comfort zone, which is trying to make everything like, you know, equal and symmetrical. And you know, I figured these stairs, in all likelihood, if they were really existed, you'd have stairs that were, you know, some were wider than the others. Maybe there was a longer step to the, you know, to some of them. Maybe the distance between steps was off slightly, and so I tried to keep it pretty close, but it was nice to just not have to be so worried about making everything line up perfectly. So yeah, this is something I'm really happy with how it turned out. You'll see here at this part of the build, I start to curve the stairs along the wall, and I thought about for a moment kind of having it backtrack the other way, and you know, I could have done that, and I did a little bit of tweaking with it off camera, but it just looked kind of weird. And so I just pretty much carry the curve all the way around this mountainside or hillside, cliffside I should say, and until it reaches the base of the castle below. And you know, in my own mind, when I consider like if this were really built, you know, centuries ago, that they would go for the easiest route possible, and as long as the cliffside allowed for it, they would just continue the stairs down. And so that's what I ended up going with. And again, I'm really happy with how that finished product turned out. So here, just working on sort of the walkway in between the guard tower and the main castle. And I didn't add a ton of detail to the guard tower. Like I said, you'll see me put some pillars in there that sort of act as a better support than those archways do. But other than that, I didn't do a ton of detail there, and that was kind of intentional. You know, I think one of the traps that I get into is that I think for, you know, sometimes I think that for a building to look good, it needs to be super detailed, and I don't think that's always the case. You know, it's up for debate whether these look good or not, but I'm still, you know, I'm still happy with the level of detail that are in them, I guess. And like I said, there's definitely more that I could have done from a standpoint of I could have used, you know, hundreds of pieces to try to make it look like a ruined castle, but given my time constraints and everything, and you know, trying to show some self-restraint on just how detailed I got, I do think it ended up looking pretty good. So when I upload the park to the workshop, if you want to get in here and get super detailed and add, you know, vines and foliage and all that stuff to the castle, and you know, use the chimneys to try to make it look old and run down, more power to you. I think it would be you know, a fun park to continue to work on. And in fact, I don't know if I'll record any of it, but this may be a park that I use to stream on Twitch. Just something that's fun to mess around with and can kind of continue the theme. I did kind of spend some time this week on the Paris park, and again, I think this was a good break for me, because spending time on that park, I realized, like I said, that tons of detail doesn't always necessarily mean that that's the right route to go or that it looks the best. and especially with the main street in my Paris park, I'm trying the two sort of corner buildings that I have thus far are really detailed. Both of them are just under 2,000 pieces, like just under by a handful, and the main entry building based on Hotel de Ville is like, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 pieces, I think. So trying to limit the piece count, and the buildings in between are not going to be as detailed, but I'm still finding that I can capture the look of Paris without having to, you know, have a 2,000 piece building. So, you know, I do, generally speaking, I do think the more detail the better, generally speaking, but I still think you can get the right look of something without going super crazy. So yeah, so here I'm just putting in the floor of this main area and the bottom of the castle, and just separating those wall pieces from the existing building and basically moving them around like they're non-grid pieces, which nothing, like I said, nothing groundbreaking there. And then here just using those castle accent pieces to create steps down, and then I end up just copying that building from the upper part of the castle down here to create the appearance of, you know, like again, another storehouse. And that's actually something that, like I said, if I continue to mess around with this map on Twitch or something like that, I'll probably add more detail, and I'll probably make them look a little more like, gosh, what's the name of the theme, the fantasy theme that has like the, you know, the grass roofs and things like that. I'll probably start using those and try to give it the feel of like, you know, this is where like the townsfolk have their market and things like that. So like I said, if that's the route I end up going and do it for fun and just to stream, then I may change the direction a bit. But for the purposes of this build, where literally the castle is just something you're seeing as you pass by on the roller coaster, you know, everything that I did, I feel, was pretty sufficient. So just adding some more detail to that building, and then here I'm adding these sort of windows that, you know, in my own mind I envision as something that you would be able to, I don't know the technical military castle term, but, you know, basically the sort of peepholes that you would shoot arrows out of and things like that, if you were defending the castle. And so I put a ton of those in, and again, in the final build, there's only a handful. I ended up just sort of positioning them where they follow the curve of this tower, and they go down the steps as well. So they're at sort of an angle, but they curve with the tower. And also from, you know, a defense standpoint, I thought that made a lot of sense, because if you're going to be defending the castle and people are coming up the stairs, those are the positions you would want to be in to shoot arrows out of and things like that. So yeah, so anyway, you can just see there I used the chimneys to create the look of the supports that go in between the bottom part of that watchtower and the top part. And again, all I used there was just the rough brick chimney. And then here, just using the painter tool to sort of create a path, and, you know, like if people were coming to the castle from all over the place, that's kind of the route that they would go. And then I also spent a good amount of time using the really bright green grass, and again, I'm not sure if it's grass or if it's moss, but I mixed that in with the darker green grass kind of all throughout the entire area. And again, I did a lot of that off camera, but I'm really happy with the way that looks, because to me anyway, it really captured the bright green color that you see when you look at photos of Ireland. So here, like I said, just copying and adding that building, and then I just copy around the castle walls, and then I use one of the, like that giant wooden door as sort of the gateway to the castle here. And so yeah, we're almost, I think we're almost out of time-lapse footage here. And then at the end of the video, I have a nighttime and a daytime POV of the ride. And if there's any interest, I'll probably release just a video of the POVs as well. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And in the next episode, we will return to the Paris Park. Hope you have a happy St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you in the next episode.